is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 226 of Sports Cards Live. It's Saturday night, May the 18th, 2024. My name's Jeremy Lee, and I would like to thank everybody who joined us last Saturday for the Post Sport Card Expo recap and the Montreal Expo preview that is coming up next weekend. Hope you enjoyed that. No episode next Saturday, as I will be in Montreal at the Expo. Definitely come by, say hello if you are at that show. PWCC weekly hockey coverage tomorrow night, as usual, with Josh Madigan from the Hockey Cards Gong Show. And Monday night, the MC Mondays Showcase Live will be happening here on the channel with none other than Michael Hathaway. I'd like to ask you to please download the Center Stage app across iOS and Android for quick comps, card identification features. They've launched their marketplace, so please join me in supporting the great team they have and the innovation they're undertaking at Center Stage app. And Filth Bomb Breaks offers live case and box breaks. They do so with responsibility and integrity. If you enjoy group breaks and are looking for a professional company to break with, check out Filth Bomb. They are streaming on Fanatics Live on 4 channels, 7 days a week. I'd also like to shout out hobbynewsdaily.com. Check them out for your daily dose of hobby news, and Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect, who will be joining us a little bit later today. Well, actually pretty soon, for the Vintage Spotlight, where he'll be talking about the issue at hand tonight as well. And if you value transparency and accuracy and consistency in grading, please visit taggrading.com. Also, check out the new sportscardslive.com website. A few different features there, including a blog, because I just want to do some writing now every once in a while. And also, please remember, this show is available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please follow and subscribe for free. And please leave a rating or review on your podcast platform. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you to all loyal viewers and listeners. If you're not yet subscribed, please take a moment and do so. But let's get to tonight's show. As always, your comments and your questions are in play. We are going to bring out tonight's guest. He is the reason that we are having this show, this topic in the first place. We're going to bring him on. Let's get to meet him. Matthew, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight, Matthew?
Doing good. As long as the Canucks didn't pull together a really good third period, it'll be even better. Thanks for having me on, Jeremy.
Yeah, you bet, Matt. You bet. It is Game 6 of the Edmonton Oilers, Vancouver Canucks right now, second round of the playoffs. End of the second period. Last I checked, it was 2-1, 3-1 Edmonton. So Vancouver has to come back here to put the series away, or they will be going back for game number 7. Matt, we got a good audience tonight. I think it's going to grow as the night progresses here. Guys, we do have a really good show. And, you know, a lot of you saw the statement, the reel that I put out on Instagram and X and YouTube a few days ago. There have been quite a few developments in the specific story since then, which we will share with you. But we want to take this opportunity to really share some experiences and what we've learned and how we as a community can really move forward in this hobby and not, really limit the fear, the risk we're taking when we are buying sports cards from other people. It obviously there is risk with that, and I'm happy that I'm happy this happened to me and I got involved in this, Matt, because I have spent about 2 hours on the phone now altogether with the RCMP, which for anyone who's not Canadian watching is our national police service, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I've learned a lot. They've learned a lot. We actually, the one constable that I've been talking to went and did some research, answered some questions, got back to me. So I'm going to share all that information, Matt. But, maybe even before we start hearing from you, let's say hello to the people we have in the chat so far. Josh Packham says he's glad to see that we're bringing the situation to the public's attention. Yeah, and Josh has a special place to play in all this as well. We'll get to that in a little bit. Todd McDonald, welcome to the show. Jacob Dahl for the game. Paul Masheri, welcome from Houston. Daniel A is here. The Card Hunter. Lapper's here. What's going on, Lapper? Hobby Champs, good to see you. Mark Santucci, good to see you. Yep. Too bad you won't be coming to Montreal. Daniel, yeah, it is. But you know what? This story, we'll let you know how things are working there. Junk Wax Museum, appreciate that comment very much. Al G, great to see you. Mike Double V, what's going on? Robert Scott. Lapper says, this dude is really nice to give his time while his team has a huge game 6 going on. I know, and I just said, Matt, please turn down the volume on the game. But I'm sure you're watching in the background, Matthew, and I don't believe you. Mark Santucci likes your jersey. Jeff McMahon is here. Good to see you for the game. Yeah, sorry to hear about what happened, Matt. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. The Hobby with Cage says, I don't know what this is saying. Justin Bode, what's going on, Justin? Great to see you. Cardboard Corner, Yitz is here. Peeps is here. Welcome, everybody. Oh, more Penguins Collector. Good to see you. He says, welcoming Matt to the program. Newfie Sig, I apologize on behalf of Edmonton. It's okay. It's and it's not necessarily Edmund. I'll tell you that as well. Yes, we'll see you in Montreal. Right on. Sounds good. Okay, guys. Listen, I mean, it's I guess, Matt, let's start with you. I don't want to tell your story. I'm going to ask you to tell your story. What happened here? What happened from your perspective?
So yeah, the incidents about my cards. It all kind of started there. The last few years, I've been dealing with PTSD issues, and it spiraled into addiction with alcohol. And last October, thankfully, my employer paid for treatment, specifically a first responder and military treatment for trauma and addictions. And so it was actually near where I grew up in Nanaimo, BC. So for me, it was perfect. I've been firefighting for almost 29 years now. So I was able to pretty much go back home, close to family and friends, get into some treatment with some fellow first responders and military. And about halfway through the treatment, I was just on my phone and noticed some checks had been cashed from I can't remember the last time I even wrote a check. So yeah, that rose to some suspicions, and I got those canceled, and the bank refunded me, but I also got a hold of the person who was looking after my cats for me, who I work with. And yeah, he kind of had a look and didn't notice anything too bad, or like he didn't notice anything missing. He checked where I had the checkbooks and some credit cards, and they were gone. He didn't know how anyone got in. And then a couple days, I think we had a conversation with me through the laundry room. But yeah, there's no clear indication how they got in. And then a couple days later, he got a hold of me saying that work laptop was gone that I had at home, and a couple of other things were he noticed some things that were missing from around the house or moved. So I was able to get on FaceTime with him, and he just kind of went around the house, and I'm like, okay, no, go look over here where my cards were. And yeah, there was nothing left there. And I had him check where my game used Scott Niedermeyer equipment was, and thankfully they were all still there, so I didn't have to worry about the game used equipment. But yeah, the entire Scott Niedermeyer collection was gone.
So here you are, you're off in treatment in BC, which is, the next province over. You're not in your home, so your place is pretty much vacant at the time besides your stuff. And you find out halfway through that your place is broken into, your work laptop is gone, and your Scott Niedermeyer card collection is also gone. And I kind of, I know you've been in the hobby a while, Matt. I've known you through message board communities for Hobby Insider for a long time. I want to know that this is something that I've been wondering from you is, how did that feel? Like, I don't ever want to feel that, but I'm curious, how did it feel to you when you realized that your card collection and it's interesting because I'm aware that you had sold some other cards. You were keeping, all you really had left was your Scott Niedermayer card collection. How did it feel when you found out that that collection had been stolen out of your house while you were out of town?
Yeah, it was sick to his stomach. Like out of anything that was taken, even the cashing of my checks, that it didn't really bother me, but it was the cards that bothered me the most, because I first started collecting Scott Niedermayer in 2003 after he brought the Stanley Cup to our fire camp just outside of Cranbrook after the Devils won the cup, and I had pictures with myself and Scott Niedermayer in the cup, just completely filthy in my firefighting uniform, and then I had a couple of other PCs since then, but nothing like that one. I just had just under 1,400 different cards of his.
So you're devastated. I got to think it's pretty upsetting. Here you are, you know, and you're away in treatment for PTSD, addiction, and while you're away, your cards get stolen. I can only imagine how that ends up feeling for someone that goes through that. I mean, it's not going to be fun at all. So I want to now share so as I said, I'm at the Edmonton Expo here 2 weeks. Oh, tell us this, Matt. When did this happen? What month did your cards get stolen out of your house?
Was it November of last year around?
Okay, November last year. That's enough. Okay, so November last year, the cards get stolen, and what were some of the first things that you did when that happened? Did you call the police? Did you file a police report? Did you put out an APB to the hobby? How did you proceed?
I think first, because I went and called and got the file started with the RCMP, and then I think the next move for me was to go and post on Hobby Insider, because just about, I think everyone on there has seen some of my Niedermayer cards and know me from there, even though I've kind of just been lurking the last few years. That was the first place after the RCMP. I went posted there. Right.
Okay. So fast forward now to probably fast forward to 2 weeks ago. Here I am at the Edmonton Sport Card Expo, somewhere I like to go every time it happens. And gentleman, comes by my booth and he says, "Hey, you want to buy some cards?" I say, "Sure, let me see them." I look at them and I end up buying the cards. I actually bought in a couple of tranches from this guy over the course of the weekend. And that's it. I come home the next Saturday. I go live here on Sports Cards Live, and I say, "Hey, who wants to see, or do you guys want to see the cards I picked up in Edmonton?" And I start showing them all the cards that I picked up onto my screen. Well, that's great. I go to bed that night, no problems. I wake up the next morning. I have a private message on the Hobby Insider website from the guy who left the first comment in here, a guy named Josh Packham, who says right here that he's glad to see we're bringing the situation to the public's attention. I get a direct message from Josh, and he says, "Hey, those Niedermayer cards that you bought in Edmonton that you showed last night, do you think they are maybe the stolen Niedermayer collection?" And he sends me to a link to a thread that you had started talking about it. And I go and I post to the thread, which I had seen back in November, but totally forgot in the heat of the moment of the card show, totally forget. And I post, "Oh God, totally forgot about this. Matthew, please go check my video and tell me if these are your cards." Well, you do. You watch the video, you write back to me, say, "Yes, those are my cards." And I say, "Okay, great." And right away, I'm kind of like deflated because, I spent money on these cards, and now what am I going to do? Right? What am I going to do? The right thing to do is very simple. The right thing to do is just give them back to you. Now, I haven't done that yet. I still have them right here, and we'll get to what I'm going to do with them and all that. But that's easily the right thing to do. But what if I had spent like $50,000 or $10,000 or $5,000, whatever? If I'd spent a lot of money, that could be really devastating. We'll get into that. In any event, I realize that they're your cards, and I'm starting to wonder, okay, well, what am I going to do about this? So I reach out to you. We have a conversation. You provide me with the case number that the RCMP has. You provide me with the constable's name who's in charge of the file that you opened with them at the RCMP dispatch in Northern Alberta here. And unfortunately, that constable was away for 2 days. I wasn't able to speak to her until yesterday for the first time, which I did. And we have a great conversation. I tell her everything that I know about the situation. And then, she ends up doing some research for me so that I can, because I said, listen, I'm going live tomorrow night to talk to the audience about this. And I'd like as much information as possible to share, like, what should we be doing in this situation? And we're gonna go to that pretty much right away here. Now, Matthew, I have put you on mute just so you know, because there is like a cricket sound coming out of your mic or your computer or something. If there's anything you can do about that, if you know what I'm talking about and you can eliminate it, please do. Otherwise, I will just mute you when you're not talking. Now, guys, on Sports Cards Live here, we always bring on Leighton Sheldon from Just Collecting Vintage Breaks. He comes on with me at around this time, and he shares something about vintage cards. But tonight, we're bringing him on to talk about his experiences and how he handles this. So we're going to split off. Matthew, I'm going to ask you to hang tight right now. We're going to bring on Leighton. Leighton, welcome back to the show. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We got a good audience tonight, Leighton. Big topic on hand here. And so I wanted to get your, and by the way, Leighton, please meet Matthew. Matthew, please meet Leighton.
Nice to meet you, Leighton.
All right, good stuff. So, Leighton, as you have heard, as you know, I bought some cards that were stolen from Matthew back in November. I bought them at the Edmonton show, and that comes with some risk for me. I'd like you to share your thoughts on, you've been buying and selling sports cards for decades now, often from strangers, I assume. How do you protect yourself from buying stolen cards?
Sure. Listen, it's a great question. So first of all, Matthew, I'm sorry this happened. Jeremy, I'm sorry you got in the crosshairs of this. It's unfortunate for everyone, but I really do appreciate the approach that you're taking, Jeremy. And candidly, that's the reason why I'm on tonight. I didn't have to be here. It's not really like my regular thing. But I wanted to at least share the little bit of knowledge that I have. As you said, I've been doing this for a long time. And by the way, there's no guarantees, but I'm going to share with you a couple of things that I do and the way that I handle it. And hopefully it can help at least one person out there.
Let's hear it.
Number one thing is, and I don't know what you paid for the cards, none of my business. I don't know if you've told the audience or people, Jeremy, but the number one thing is you have to use your common sense. And if it's too good to be true, I'm not saying it was in this case, Jeremy, but if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And that doesn't always mean, and people always think when they hear that in our industry, oh, if it's too good to be true, it's probably fake. No, this is the perfect time to bring up. It could be stolen. The PSA cert could check out. The card looks great for the grade. And you're like, I don't know this person, but yet I don't really know 98% of the people that come talk to me in the convention or that I talk to them in the convention. So I can understand why it's difficult. But that's the first thing. So in other words, if you go up to someone's booth and, if you're the dealer behind the booth and someone offers you a card for $100 is worth $1,000, something's got to be going off in your head. You got to have spidey senses. So number two, and this is a little bit, I would say, for maybe folks who do it the way that I do, which is professionally going on treasure hunts, and really could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, sometimes. Sometimes it's much less than that, of course. So what I do is I consulted with my attorney many years ago, and I have a legal document that when I do a deal for a sizable amount, they have to sign it that they have legal rights to the goods, that they not only own them, but they have legal rights to sell them. And you might say, well, like, Leighton, what good would that have done me if this person signed a document and they didn't actually have the legal rights to do that? Sure, and I'm not asking how much transactions for, then you can sue them. You could say, well, you could sue them anyway. Sure, but the thing is, you have a black and white piece of paper, a legal document. If you have a good attorney, it should be a good document. And so my advice is, whatever the number that you spend on a card or cards that would make you feel uncomfortable if you lost it, that is when I would ask someone to sign this document. And to be clear, if they won't sign it, you kind of know you have an issue on your hands. And so I could talk about a few other things, Jeremy. I don't want to take your show up. I don't want to take all of your time from your audience. But at least for me, and the common sense thing, I'm sure for a lot of people, like, very easy. But I don't know a lot of people, and colleagues included, that actually ask people to sign a document saying they are legally allowed to not only sell these, but of course they legally own them as well. And because I deal with, a fair amount of, let's just say, estates or, collections that have been passed on, that document to me is really important, because you never know when, like, Uncle Billy's going to come out of the woodwork and say, yeah, but I never got my share, or they're my cards. And so I hope some of that helps, Jeremy and Matt.
Yeah, that does help, and that's consistent. Part of that is consistent with what I learned myself talking to Canadian law enforcement over the last couple of days. So, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Leighton, let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where you were in possession of stolen property, sports cards?
Not off the top of my head, thank goodness, which is pretty incredible considering how much I deal with. That being said, and it's more of a, it's like a childhood tale, but it really does, I think, tie into what you're talking about tonight. So it was a friend in the neighborhood. We weren't the best of friends. We weren't the worst of friends. And, much like a lot of us when we're kids, like whatever which way the wind is blowing, you go that way. So he decided he didn't want his cards anymore. I went over and bought his cards. There was no Mickey Mantles. There was nothing vintage. And I got that proverbial call. And I remember, I think it was my mother. She's like, Leighton! Like, yeah, Mom, what's up? She's like, did you buy Jonathan, I don't want to use his last name, so-and-so's card collection? Jeremy, I was so happy and very proud of what I had done. And she's like, did you clear it with his mother? Obviously this is a while ago. And so I'm not saying you should clear it with someone's mother, but let's be clear. And I can tell you that this may not be what to do, but I will not do this. There's a lot of kids in the hobby that come up to me at the National particularly that clearly look less than 17. I will not buy a card from them unless they're with their parents. And so these are, once again, to me, common sense things. But to be clear, I don't know that everyone does them, and other people might have more to offer. But I would just say you're it's a very old saying, right? You're better off safe than sorry. And so I'm sorry that Matt had to go through what he did, Jeremy. I'm sorry you ended up where you did, but this is just another thing that I do to make sure that I kind of steer clear of, what I can. But make no mistake, with that collection when I was a kid, I gave it back. Now, I obviously got my money back, but I wasn't happy because I did the work and I carried it home and all this other stuff, but I gave it back.
Let me ask you this question next, Leighton. This might be the last one I can think of for you, which is listen, you're at card shows, you got booths, you're buying, selling. How many times can you remember where you've actually had to say, you know what, I can't buy this collection, and you're thinking in your head because I don't trust you, it might be stolen, it might be even, fake cards, that kind of thing. I'm not as fake, obviously fake counterfeit cards, counterfeit slabs, very important in our hobby as well for people to be aware and on alert for. This episode is about stolen cards and stolen property more. So yeah, how many times, if ever, have you had to say, you know what, this might be too good to be true, and I just don't trust that I'm buying legitimate property here?
So I'm going to go back and refer to the National, because I feel like for everyone who's watching, most everyone, even if you hadn't been to the National, you've at least heard of the National Sports Collectors Convention. And so I don't keep records of this, Jeremy, but I would tell you at least once a National, no less than once, I will get a bad feeling in my spidey sense, and I just pass. Keep in mind, that's not counting, I'm going to tell you probably a half dozen kids, easy, if not more, where they'll show me their cards and they're like, oh, no, but, these are my cards. My parents say I can do whatever I want. Like, maybe, but I'm not going to pay you for the card, certainly in cash. I'm going to have a problem later. I just don't want any flashbacks from when I was dealing with Jonathan when I was a super young kid. So I would say it happens, Jeremy. Thankfully, not very much. And to be fair, it doesn't mean because I pass that there's actually something wrong. It's just I prefer to punt if there's risk.
I think you have to protect yourself. I think that's a good move. That's how I would want to proceed myself. And you know what? Let's face it. It can be tempting. It can be tempting, right? We're human. It can be tempting to maybe, bias your own mind to think the other way and say, you know what? Okay, maybe these are stolen cards, and this is a good deal. I can make a lot of money on them. So now it really comes down to your character, your integrity, your understanding of a long-term thing versus a quick in and out to an industry sort of thing. And if you're just in and out, you might say, "Oh, who cares? I'm going to take that risk." But if you've made if sports cards are a lifestyle for you, which they are for us, I think you're going to look long-term a little bit more, Leighton. Anything else you'd like to add before you get going with the rest of your night?
Yeah, the last thing I was going to add is you almost mentioned it, but I'm going to just clarify right now. So, Matt, I don't know exactly what happened, but I have a rough idea. And sometimes stolen cards don't always appear the same way. What I mean is, you're talking about, Matt, if I'm not mistaken, the cards were at a show when they were taken?
No, they were stolen from his basement, actually.
So there you go. I think that there's a lot of theft that I've heard of, unfortunately, at card shows. So that's the number one place to look out. But I've had people, clearly, like they've taken their cards from their brother, or they've taken their cards from their brother-in-law. And, you just got to be super duper careful. And I guess the best tip I can say, other than, of course, a cheap price, if someone comes up to you, it doesn't matter if it's at a convention, it's at your home, anywhere in between, and they're not talking the talk, and they don't have the lingo down, and they have kind of sophisticated cards like RPAs or T206s. I'm not saying like they have a 1980 Topps Ricky Henderson rookie, which is kind of mainstream. 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie is mainstream. Someone's got M116s, T205s in high grade, and they're super duper priced. You gotta take a step back. At least take a breath.
Yeah, no, well said. Appreciate you coming on, Leighton, in the middle of your evening out there on the East Coast in New Jersey. So thanks again, and appreciate the information that you're able to share here with everybody.
Oh, listen, it's my pleasure. If anyone has ever, if anyone ever has any questions and they want to ask me about a deal, if it seems too good to be true, there's some details around it that they think seem fishy to them, or they have some overgraded cards in a holder and they feel uncomfortable about that, you can DM me on Instagram. Jeremy will put up how to find me, or you can email me directly, Leighton@justcollect.com.
All right, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Take it easy, guys.
All right. I've got you off mute, Matt. Still hearing that crickety sound. So I'm gonna silence your mic when I don't have you talking. Did anything Leighton just say stick out to you as extra important, or something that you might take away for yourself moving forward?
Yeah, I think if you ever get the bad feeling and then just passing, I know before treatment, what I learned is I had some issues with boundaries in the past. So sometimes if someone's coming up to you, they're trying to get you to come up with a deal or get you into doing something that you don't really want to do. And some people just have that, can twist their elbow really easily, but it's just got to be like, no, sorry. It's a passing.
So Matt, you sold off your collection. You kept your Niedermeyers. They then got stolen. I've got some of them here. We'll talk about that. Where are you at in your head right now as far as the hobby goes? I could imagine this might be, disheartening for a collector. Where are you at right now, hobby-wise, as far as your own collecting goes?
I've slowed off on a lot of the collecting, especially kind of during the COVID times. The prices were just getting kind of out of hand, and it was kind of just taking the fun out of opening a box, and kind of the way Upper Deck's taken things to more like a group break style kind of openings. Like, I don't know, it's just not as fun. Like, I like the group breaks where it's just a whole bunch of random boxes of stuff, but you still have like the old. I kind of miss the old, late '90s, early 2000s style Upper Deck where, it's just a whole bunch of packs and it's not a lot of. You get a lot of hits. Back when the insert numbers or the serial numbers were like 1,000, and that was a decent card. It just seems like now, it's so many hits now, and it just almost takes the fun out of it when you don't hit something.
And that, that's everything else going on in the hobby. I'm asking you specifically, how does your cards getting stolen? Where does that leave you now, hobby wise? Are you still going to collect?
I still look out for Niedermeyers that I don't have on eBay, but I could have held off on getting any more to see if I was able to get any or the majority of my collection back. Just because I put so much time and money into it, I just didn't really want to start collecting again. And while in treatment, I also realized that collecting was actually exhibit a lot of addictive behavior for me. Just the opening boxes or bidding on eBay auctions. When you hit something big or you win that eBay auction, you get that rush of endorphins, and it can be almost addicting, especially for people who have addictive personalities.
Yeah, for sure. I also want to ask you, how has the community around you, and by that I mean your collector community, how have people respond? Have you found there to be support in the last months as far as just the fact that you did lose this collection? How have people responded to you since you went public with it?
It was great. I had a lot of support. A lot of people on Hobby Insider sending me links or tips of like where they've seen higher in Niedermeyers. So it's kind of led me down some holes to where I've connected with people and how they were able to get some of the cards and let them know what was going on. And sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't, but I've been able to contact people and kind of even work with them on how I would approach that situation differently the next time, or how tips for, if that situation happens to the dealer or consignor, again, questions that they could ask someone who comes to them saying, hey, you've got some of my stolen cards.
Right. Okay. No, I'm glad to hear it. Have you received any of your cards back?
Yes, I've gotten 2 cards back out of my entire collection from a dealer down in Airdrie.
Got it. Okay. All right. I'm going to mute you again, and we're going to go to some comments now. And we got Karn from Slab Sharks who had some of these cards for sale on eBay under the Slab Sharks Consignment. He's going to be coming on to talk about his place in all this, and and what he's done to mitigate the risk that this will happen again to them as a legit business in our space. So I'm going to mute you. I'm going to go to some comments now, guys. Thanks everybody for being here again, and of course. Newfie Sig living in Edmonton, go Oilers, but a huge fan of JT Miller and Brock Besser on the Canucks. I don't know. Keep us posted on the score, guys, if you don't mind, in the Edmonton-Vancouver game. Still only 25 cents, as if it was Rob Niedermeyer, I'd thank the person who took them. That's not nice. Hobby Champs, plot twist, Rob Niedermeyer's the thief. The Card Hunter says, I hope someone is in jail for this. I'm doubtful. I can confirm nobody is in jail for this yet, and this comes from my discussions with the law enforcement officer that is in charge of this file. So I can tell you that. The Hobby with Cage, holy shit. Did you talk to the Mounties, Jeremy? Yes, I did, Cage. Yes, I did. David, appreciate that very much. Cage says, this is a great topic. Nice job. It's one of those things you joke to never happen, and it's not easy to navigate. That's a great comment, Cage, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons why we're here today, is just to get into this and share the information and the experiences, make people aware. If nothing else, if any of you watching, listening comes away from this aware and you can dodge a bad deal, that's great. Even better if you can dodge a bad deal, but find out some information and share that information about the deal you dodged. Maybe you're going to help find certain cards finding their way home to the rightful owner. Cage says, I feel bad for all you guys in Canada. You are stuck collecting hockey. Cage, we can get it all here, but we're actually lucky. It's the best sport to collect. So there you go. There you go. 99 cents says, never thought of having that in the back pocket for high-end deals when not knowing the seller. He's referring to a document that Leighton had mentioned that he uses. Professor, good evening to you. Welcome to the show. Justin Bode, good to see you as always, buddy. Sounds like a good learning experience as a young lad. So I think this is a good learning experience. It's unfortunate. It is a good learning experience. Daniel A says, what does a grading company do if you report one of your cards stolen? Do they do anything with a cert number the same way they do with fake slabs? That's a really great comment from Daniel right there. And actually, I wanted to mention somebody in my reel made a comment and said, scan the PSA when you're buying cards, scan the PSA serial numbers into their app and see if the card is decertified. I don't know if they will decertify cards that are known to be stolen or not, Daniel and everybody else, but that is also just a good thing to do. Otherwise, is make sure that the card you're looking at isn't, if nothing else, isn't counterfeit. Hobby Champ says, I recommend vaulting with PWCC for people who live in non-secure apartments and homes. Definitely an option for people for security. And Barry R says, if it's too good to believe, just walk away. And yeah, I think we've definitely established that to be a smart way to go. So thanks for that one, Barry. 4-1 Oilers says Canada Blue. Thank you for that. I'm not going to win my daily fantasy today. That is for sure. Mark Santucci, hockey is great. For the game, had part of my collection stolen in early 2000 and is just a punch in the gut. No doubt about it. Like I said earlier, I don't ever want to feel what Matthew felt and anyone else who's had their cards stolen. It's another thing, the feeling I had when I found out I was in possession of stolen property, which I'm going to get back to that right now, actually. Quick announcement, everybody. Rage has entered the chat, everybody. Rage has entered the chat. All right. So when I found out that I was in possession of these stolen cards, it was a punch to my gut, Matthew and everybody. It's like, well, now what? Like right away, I'm thinking about my financial loss. I also think about, well, whose cards are these, which I knew, but I'm like, this poor guy, I would never want to feel that way either. And now what do I do? Do I send the cards back and eat the loss? Do I look for evidence? Do I ask for evidence? Because it's important to note in this case, and this is me also speaking to law enforcement, I don't believe at this point, Matthew, that there was any like real hardcore evidence that they were your cards, aside from a spreadsheet and some pictures, which is pretty good evidence. Now, personally, I 100% believe these were your cards. Speaking, it is a part of the file and the investigation at this point. But the nice thing is that I even, said to law enforcement today, I said, listen, I mean, I've talked to Matthew, and I'm no expert. I'm no psychologist. I'm not a mind reader, but I mean, I believe these are his cards. He's been on Hobby Insider for, I don't know exactly how long, Matthew, but 10 plus years. And he's known as a Scott Niedermayer collector. Like you were known as that. So I really knew and felt strongly that they were your cards. And so it still left me feeling like, well, I knew what I had to do. Let's face it. The decision wasn't difficult. I'm going to send you back the cards. I mean, number one, it's the right thing to do. Number two, I mean, let's face it. If I don't, what's going to happen to me, right? I'm not a private guy that nobody knows. I got a platform in this hobby. And so it's the right thing to do. And I have to do it anyway, if not just to protect my reputation so I can sleep at night myself, which are both important things. So that wasn't even a question. But it is still that kick to the gut, right? And we have to deal with it. So Matthew, I want to let everybody know, when I talked to you the first time, you felt really bad for me. You one of your first messages was, I'm really sorry you got caught up in this. And I appreciated that, because not only am I now having to deal with it, and I'm dealing with the RCMP, Canadian Law Enforcement, I'm also positioned to take a loss. And you were telling me things like, well, you know, Jeremy, why don't we do this? Why don't we sell the cards and you get your money back and I'll take the rest? Or, you know, why don't we, you were trying to keep me whole. And while I'm like, that's super nice of you, man, you know, like, what a good guy, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to sleep well at night if that happens. So that's not what's happening, right? We're not going to sell these cards and I'm going to take the money that I paid for them and give you the rest. There is something happening here, but that is not it. But listen, I want to ask you, why would you, like, not why, I get it, but what goes through your mind when you say to me, Jeremy, I want you to get your money back. I don't want you to take a hit. Why were you willing to do that for me?
I don't know. I think, like, if someone came to me and they were really big on, you know, Hobby Insider, like myself, and I came across cards and they had posted that they had cards stolen, I'd be checking with them to see, hey, were these your cards? I know I've still seen posts on Hobby Insider, and I'll see a Scott Niedermayer card, and it's from the Cup from 05-06, and I'm like, oh no, please don't let this be one of my cards. And I checked the serial number. Oh, thankfully it's not. But yeah, I know how much it sucked for me, and just losing them, and how much money I put into it, and then if somebody's buying them unknowingly, it's not a good feeling for them, and especially since you're so kind of, you know, to reach out to me and say, hey, were these your cards? Yeah, it's you know, it's just a great part of the hobby and Hobby Insider that, you know, we have that kind of community, and I don't want to, you know, sour it for anyone else. Yeah, and even if the person I suspect just stole them, I know deals with addiction issues, and even while I suspected it and didn't, you know, come out right in front of him, I'm still trying to help him to try to, you know, deal with his addictions and say, hey, why don't you come to a meeting with me, and see if you could get some help and, you know, get off this.
That's yeah, wow, that's big of you. The person that you suspect broke into your house and stole your cards, you have actually tried to help through their addiction issues, which is, I mean, that's something else, man. I gotta tip my cap to you. I think that's you know, they say, you know, forgiveness is godliness sort of thing. That's something special. At the end of the day, you know, these are, you know, I guess when you really drill down, these are just cards, but they're cards that cost you money, your hard-earned money to purchase, and our collections are more than just cards in a box. I mean, we really do identify with them. A couple quick comments coming up here. Mark Santucci says Matthew's a great man. That's very nice. Rage says, Matt, your character, a good man, shows your character very well. I think that's really nice as well. Hobby Champ said somebody started a GoFundMe for making Jeremy whole for his. We don't need to do that, Hobby Champs. I appreciate that. And I'll get to that soon. But he says someone should start a GoFundMe to make me whole. We don't need to do that at all. I am made whole. I'll tell you guys that right now. I am made whole, and I'll also give away a little bit of what I want to say for later, is that some other people who bought some of these cards are also being made whole by virtue of this coming to public light right now. And I guess the reel I put out there, I mean, I didn't put that out there thinking it would reach as many people as it did, but between all the platforms it's on, that reel has been received quite well relative to other pieces I put out there. So I'm grateful that it hit the algorithm, I guess you could say. Newfie Sig, Matthew, you're 1 in a million. Respect. That's very nice, Newfie Sig. Now, I will say, I don't like Matthew's. like obviously I'm sending these cards back to Matthew, right? That's happening. That there's no doubt about that. I also want to shout out and Karn has joined us. Karn, I see you. We're going to bring you out in just a minute or two, if that's all right. Another person who bought cards, it was actually the guy the person who was selling the cards at the Edmonton card show, by the way, also a victim in all this. Also not somebody who was knowingly selling stolen goods. So that was a relief for me to learn. And but that person still has some Niedermeyer cards. He's returning them to Matthew now. Another guy, the guy who sent that person to my booth, bought some cards first from the guy who had them. He is now sending the cards back to Matthew, and he is also going to be reimbursed. So that it's great. Like, we are coming together. That is 3 groups of cards that are going to make their way back to Matthew. So really happy about that. And like I said, I appreciate everyone saying, "Oh, we want to help make Jeremy whole." Don't worry about me. Matthew, however, still has a lot of cards missing, but he will be getting some of them back, and that there's at least something wonderful about that. I think at least that makes me happy. So, Matt, you ready? We'll bring out Karn and we'll talk about the consignment side of things. All right, I'm going to mute you. All right, Karn, welcome back. How you doing, pal?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So listen, I wanted to bring you on today because when cards are stolen in any fashion in this hobby, the goal of the thief is to put them back out there so they can get their money. They're not they're likely wanting to convert these to cash, and they're going to try to get their money out of it. And one of the avenues for doing that is to send them to a consignment seller. And I think this is really important for all consignment sellers to be aware of. So my question for you, Karn, is what are your policies as a consignment seller? And, when you realized that you had already sold and shipped some of these cards off, what were your thoughts on that? Like, just tell us your thoughts on the situation. I think I've set the table for you there.
Yeah. First off, I just wanted to say, Matthew, nice putting a face to your voice. Obviously, we had a nice long conversation there, and I want to reiterate how wonderful Matthew has been in this whole process. Just like you, Jeremy, speaking to him on the phone and having that lengthy conversation with him, kind of just created peace and calm in the kind of chaos that kind of occurred. And thank you for that. You were wonderful to speak to. And on your question, I think this situation really pushed us forward. I think at the beginning there, I do believe our policy on stolen cards wasn't, good enough. And I think initially what we had as our policy was, if there's an accusation, have some evidence, bring it to us, and we'll take care of it. And some context on that scenario, we've had, obviously, auctions is a very emotionally charged situation, right? So you deal with a lot of differing personalities, a lot of differing situations and circumstances. We've actually had accusations on cards being stolen before, and we'd have to go and talk to a consignor, and the consignor would show us, luckily, a picture of him pulling the card on the day of a release. So obviously it's almost not even possible for the card to be stolen. The consignor had that card from pack to consignment. So that's kind of the context where we went with is, it's possible for people to make false accusations. And that's kind of what we ran with on an evidence approach. And then this situation with Matthew occurred, and I think that kind of flipped everything on its head. And we went first with that. Matthew messaged us actually on eBay there. And we replied back to him, looking, waiting for evidence on the scenario. And Matthew actually provided us with, the RCMP name, the badge number, and the contact information. And actually that information ended up being wrong. It was inaccurate. And I think Matthew remembers that scenario. So when I went to go do the due diligence on if that story, was accurate, me not knowing Matthew, I called the RCMP. It went to a different branch. I asked for the badge number and the police officer's name, and it didn't exist. So at that point, we were like, okay, we have no real evidence here. I'm not sure if the context is that these cards are actually stolen. We spoke to the consignor. The consignor says, obviously he's a victim of part of it as well. He said he didn't steal any cards, and he's a shop, and he's pretty confident that they weren't stolen at the time. So we went with the approach of, okay. And actually I think Matthew was busy for a couple of days after as well. So he after our message back to him, he didn't reply back either for a few days. So that actually resulted in us being confident that these cards weren't stolen, or, it was just a false accusation or something like that. And obviously now in hindsight, we know it wasn't. But in that situation, what we learned is, we can't go just based on evidence because, there's differing circumstances and, mistakes happen. There's situations where the information doesn't get relayed in proper channels. And so what we decided to do is after this situation occurred and we shipped out the cards to the buyer, paid out our consignor. So everything of the whole kind of consignment cycle was over. Matthew finally reached back out. And this is kind of where the Hobby Insider messaging started taking place, and I caught a wind of the whole situation. And me and Matthew had a lengthy conversation, and I asked him, how do we make this better? Like in that situation, how do we make you feel, and how can we make sure that in a situation that happens again in the future, can we make this better and create a better policy? And what we decided to do is simply evidence is not required anymore. If there's an accusation, we're going to investigate it. We're just going to take the hit on ending the listing, wait it out, cool it down, see what the situation is all about, and then go from there. So a little bit more of a calm, forward-thinking approach. And also based on that, we've decided to also build something in our app and portal that we just launched, a stolen card database that we're actually building. So hopefully that'll be a progressive scenario where we can, find any stolen cards before they ever get consigned and help out any victims involved.
I think that's awesome, man. I like I don't know what to call the policy, but like just a, absolute no risk policy of if there is an accusation, you're going to investigate, like delist, not list, whatever it takes, make sure, because like you said, even like I don't feel like I've been given. I still haven't received evidence that these are Matthew's cards, like hardcore evidence. I don't have that, but I believe him, and I don't care if I get evidence or not. These are Matthew's cards, and in my mind, 100%. Like it helps that I know his hobby history too. Like he's not, it helps that I know him. If I didn't, I might approach it differently. I might say, well, I just spent X amount of money on these cards. The guy I bought them from seemed legit, which is the case of when I got these cards. The guy I got these from was very legit. I mean, and he turned out to be legit. And so, you just need to be careful that way. But I mean, these cards are going to make their way back to Matthew one way or another. And I think that your policy, Karn, of just making sure, like you learned a lesson, that's a great thing. And you guys are a young company, you're just over a year old, and you're killing it, obviously. So just kudos on that. I think it's just a great outcome. Justin makes a comment here. It says Karn is the original sponsor of Sports Cards Live. That is true. That is very true. Karn was the very first person ever who believed in what I was doing, put his money where his mouth is, I guess. So always grateful for that. Justin remembers. That's pretty funny. Matthew, I just want to, I'm going to unmute you. We're keeping Matthew on mute. Karn, he's got a crickety sound effect coming there. But Matthew, you've heard what Karn said. Anything you'd like to, I guess you guys have chatted, but anything you'd like to add or just supplement his statements with? I think for me, when I found out, I was in a unique situation. So like I was in a treatment center. I didn't even know what was all stolen from my place. So even being able to go and tell the police what was all stolen, I couldn't even do yet. For like the scans of my cards, I didn't even have access to them. Like I tried to get in on through the cloud or whatever, and I could only get a small number of cards on my phone.
All I had was the spreadsheet I had that I personally kept track of all of my cards and serial numbers, and I only had access to my phone for an hour a day. So it made it extremely hard to even communicate with the police, anyone, or people on Hobby Insider, with Karn, with other people I was communicating with. Because if I went over the hour, then they just took it off the next day. And then, I think once I got out and it kind of got to the point where the eBay auctions were over, I was just kind of threw in the towel and said, I tried, but and I think he mentioned about the badge number there. I think it was one night I was just messaging, like trying to get out messages, like I'm a peace officer myself and I know a little bit about the law and blah, blah, and this is my badge number. So that badge number was actually mine. My badge was here, peace officer. So I'm like, I might have gotten even it wrong. It was it was just a weird experience, and just being stuck in the treatment center where you only had your phone for an hour, so it was really hard to communicate. And even I should have gotten on the phone probably back then, but it would have helped out a lot. But a lot of the stuff is 2020 hindsight now, and some of that stuff, Karn and I talked about when I was back, and because I had there's still lots of stuff to do when I got back just to get all the information to the RCMP.
And you're also, don't forget, I'm going to cut you some slack here, Matt. We're not blaming you at all. I mean, you were going through treatment for PTSD and addiction. That is not easy. One of those, never mind two of them together, that you were maybe a little absent-minded at the end of it all, and you had limited time on your phone. I think it's just an unfortunate situation that led to some of this getting dragged out and led to the lack of hardcore technical evidence for anybody. Just unfortunate overall. Karn, anything else? I want to also let everyone know Dallas Morrison from Morrison Trading Post, which is a card shop just outside Calgary. They also received, just like I did, they received some of these cards into their shop. And so he's going to tell it. He's in the background right now. Dallas, I see you there. We'll bring you on in just a minute or two. Dallas is going to come on and share his situation, just like Karn is sharing his from the consignment side of things. And then I want to just talk a bit about, and Cage asked a great question in the chat, is who Cage's question was, I'm just going to go find it really quick. I can't find it, but he said, who's reimbursing you, Jeremy? Well, that's a great question. Where am I getting my money back from? Because listen, I'm happy to say I've been made whole already. I've already received back the money that I paid for these cards. So no one needs to feel sorry for me. When I put out my statement on Instagram the other day, my reel, at that point, I had nothing. I had no idea. But since then, after that reel went out and it kind of got through the community pretty quick, another individual who, and I'm gonna leave a couple people nameless in all this because talking to law enforcement, there is an ongoing criminal investigation going on here. And so, but I want to let everybody know that this hobby is awesome. We have a great community. Somebody who is the owner of an LCS asked me about the situation and basically put me in touch with the person that I bought the cards from. That guy said, hey, give Jeremy my number. I want to talk to him. So I called the guy. We had a chat. It was the same guy that I talked to that I bought the cards from at the show. And he was pretty much as devastated by this news as I was. He was so quick to say, and he remembers where he got them from, and he spoke to the RCMP today as well. Again, Canadian law enforcement for those outside of Canada, and he's now told them like where he got the cards, the description of who he got them from. So that's all great. But that guy stepped up big time and refunded my money without question. He is sending me back the remaining cards, which I'm gonna. No, sorry, he's not sending them to me. He's taking them now to the RCMP, who he also talked to today. There's this whole thing going on, guys, like in the background of all this. That's awesome. And he's also sent money back to go to the guy Chris, who sent him to my booth at the Edmonton Expo. So the community really came together here. And because my first thought, guys, was, well, the guy who sold me the cards, he must be the thief in all this. Like, that's where your mind goes naturally. I don't feel bad about that. That's where your brain goes. And then you start to think about it. Well, maybe not. And in this case, that was the not. So I was happy about that, because I like that guy that I got the cards from. He's a super nice guy. So I was glad to learn that that he is also a victim in this. Karn, anything else you'd like to add before you take off and enjoy the rest of your evening? We bring Dallas Morrison on.
Yeah, just want to say firstly, Matthew, hope you're doing well. And then if there's any light at the end of the tunnel of this situation from our end as well, it has resulted in some progressive rules and policies for us, and we're going to make sure that we can minimize or eliminate as much as possible any stolen card situations. And on that note, if the community at large has any ideas on how we can create like a flow through our app or portal on how to identify and kind of publicly relay stolen cards, let me know. We're in the development stages of building that in our portal. So if there's any ideas out there, we really want to make sure that this is completely eliminated, and we can make sure that there's an appropriate channel to kind of relay stolen cards to everyone in the country, and kind of be that place to see the database. So thank you, Matthew, for everything, and we'll continue talking. And anytime there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Karn.
Yeah, cheers.
Thanks, Karn. Thanks for coming by.
Jeremy. Yeah,
Thank
cheers,
you.
guys.
All right. So before we bring Dallas, we're going to bring you on. I just want to run through some comments first before I get too behind on them. Then we're going to bring Dallas on again from Morrison Trading Post. 86, Bobby says, tonight makes you think, at what price point in our cards do we decide to start insuring them? That's going to be an individual decision, but definitely something to consider for sure for all of us if you haven't yet. Daniel, for every bad story in this hobby, there are 10 good ones. Still a lot of great people in this community. That's something I think is really worth mentioning right now. So thank you for that one, Daniel. Justin Bode says, congratulations on sobriety, Matthew. That takes a lot. That's really nice of you right there. Oh, there's Cage's comment. Who's doing the reimbursing? Cage then asks later, I just saw, who reimburses that guy? And Cage, I'm going to share all the information that I learned from the constable I've been speaking to, the research that she's done for me to present to you. I'm going to get to that after Dallas comes on the show. So I got to get you to stick around a little bit longer on that one, Cage. Thank you, Hobby Champs. The second half of your comment. Yeah, let's keep Matthew whole. I appreciate that for sure. Justin Bowe, gotta love Karn. This guy's the best. Very nice. Rage says, awesome stuff here. Even though we hear all the bad in the hobby, deep down, this is a win for us as a community. Shows there's still humanity out there. And that was my whole goal. Like, let's take this unfortunate situation. At first, I'm like, I'm about to lose X amount of money. Let's make this into a positive for me and the community. Not so bad for me. I've got my money back, but I still want to make this a positive for the community. Still only 25 cents misplaced. A sealed case of 7980 Peachy if anyone has any leads. Funny joke. Not really the time for jokes, but okay, the odd one's good. That one's worthwhile. Still only 25 cents. Thank you. Mark Santucci says, between November and April, how many times did the cards change hands? We don't know. We don't know. So I can't answer that, Mark. Unfortunately, Cage asks who reimburses that guy. We're going to get to that, as I just mentioned. Yeah, we got a cliffhanger for you, Cage, for sure. Okay. Kieran Crilly, haven't seen you for a while. Question whether paying by card or via certain online payment channels is preferable. Apparently it is. That is preferable. We're dealing with cash at card shows so much that you can't get that back unless it's sent back to you. So, yeah, I think that does protect you one way or another, Kieran, and thank you for jumping in as well. Okay, so, and Lantern says, I have known the guy that had the cards. He's been around the shows for as long as I have been around cards. Glad to know he did the right thing. Yeah, I was so relieved and very happy about that myself. A really good guy. All right, guys, we're going to bring on Dallas Morrison. He is one of the owners of the Morrison Trading Post. These guys have a great attitude and just a great. If you've ever seen these guys at a card show, it's a family operation. Just a wonderful family, from the father and the mother to the 3 sons, the staff they have. Great people in the hobby. Let's bring out Dallas Morrison. Welcome to Sports Cards Live for the first time. How you doing tonight, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, Jeremy. Thank you for having me on. Let me know if there's any issues with the audio or anything. I'm kind of sanctioned down to the basement right now, so we'll see if it works well. So again, thank you for having me on. And Matthew, I just want to say first and foremost, just like all the other guys have, we as a family and as a shop, we feel for you, and we're sorry that you have to go through this situation and everything. So definitely we're thinking about you during all this.
Thank you.
So yeah, so where do you want to start?
Yeah, let me throw some questions your way. I'm going to put Matt. I'm going to put you back on mute now. Dallas Lantern Card says legendary stash. Gotta love it.
Thank you. So, I'm in the regrowth stage right now.
There you go. Okay, so I guess you guys took in some of these cards at your shop, and I don't think you sold them. I think you've since returned them to Matthew. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when Matthew first reached out to us, we got an email saying, "Hey, my name's Matthew. Here's the whole situation." And immediately after receiving that email, the first thing we did was take them off of all the online marketplaces, because we didn't want to be in a situation where we're dealing with the communication back and forth, and then, we sell one, and now I have to either cancel a online sale and refund someone, or, ship an item out and then go, I no longer have this, and I think this claim is real. So the first and foremost thing we did was take all the online listings down and take them out of our storefront and put them in the back of the shop to make sure that they didn't move hands while looking into the matter. As soon as that happened and we looked into it further, Matthew provided us with the RCMP file number, the case number, the constable that was on the case, their name. And, we did our due diligence. We told them, we responded back. We said, hey, thanks for letting us know. If you don't mind, we're just going to check into this a little bit, like give us a few days to do our due diligence to make sure that, like Karn said, people make claims all the time. These things are worth money. So sometimes it can be, some people will say things that aren't always true. So we wanted to look into it further. After we did, we found, this is a real case file. This is a real ongoing situation. So we're just everything points towards us believing Matthew's claims. So we contacted the RCMP to our local detachment and told them about the whole situation. We just gave them, all the details of how the transaction came to place, everything else that we had on it. And then a constable came to our store. We just gave them the cards that we had. And that was kind of the last step for us until hearing about your situation right after the Edmonton Expo, and kind of got involved in it again.
Right on. Now, sort of just as an aside, you do have an LCS, and we in the hobby, we are all well aware that LCS break and enters are very common in our hobby, throughout Canada and the States. Have you guys ever been broken into, Dallas? And I know the answer, but I'll let you answer it.
Yeah, for sure. We've had our fair share with the RCMP and other negative interactions with theft, stolen goods, because we've had our own items stolen as well. Our shop's been fully broken into twice, and a couple other attempted break-ins, but through every time, you learn. And even with this situation with Matthew, every time something negative like this happens, the most important thing you got to do from it is learn. And so from the break-ins, we adjusted security measures and, put a lot of things in place, especially now. The most recent case, we did a lot of revamping on our measures. And then same with this case with the stolen cards that were sold to us. We were a little too lax with it, just naive, to be honest. Like, you get so set in your ways of buying, selling, trading, you do it multiple times a day, every day, you kind of just get into the groove of it and you don't think about it every time. So having this situation happen really took us a step back, stop, reassess how we're doing this. At card shows, it's still a difficult thing to do because most transactions, as you know, Jeremy, it's a lot of cash transactions, and us as a shop, like we don't have all of our stuff with us. We don't have our paperwork. We don't have our computers to check everything when you're at a show. It's a lot of on just cash in hand and see what you do. So we still think there's things that can be done to improve or reduce stolen property transactions at shows. But in our LCS, in our shop, the things that we've really done to make a difference and reduce this from happening is every single purchase of cards, whether it's for store credit, for cash, for trade, anything, there's a full contract write-up that we have them sign. I was listening while I was driving home to Leighton. Big one is, yes, you have to have on there some form of line stating that they have ownership or permission to sell the property that they're trying to sell. Even if it is stolen, you have to have that in place, because if you don't, it becomes hearsay, everything like that. And then another thing we personally do is every transaction, whether it's a small amount or a big amount, we write down some form of number off of a photo ID. We ask for government issue photo ID, and we verify that the name they wrote down matches the name on the ID. And now we have the ID number, mostly driver's licenses, because if anything was to go wrong, or even if we need to get a hold of them, or say they had the card stolen from them and somewhere else along the way, we always have some form of way to get back to that person and know that the person that sold it to us is who they said they were.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, you answer. I'm just looking down at the questions I had for you. You answered them all, which is great. Really, what are you doing? What lessons have you learned, and what are you doing to ensure that you don't get into that situation again? And I think you've definitely responded and answered to that. So I think and that's why I want to have you on. We likely have owners of card shops watching. We likely have people that are going to open up a card shop watching or listening in the future. And this is stuff this is evergreen type content that should be out there for a long time. And hopefully it'll help at least one person avoid getting into a situation like this, Dallas. So, I'm grateful you took the time to come on tonight, share that with us. And you guys went through the right process when you found out when you heard from Matthew, and you did your diligence and believed the situation, found out that there was a legitimate file number with the RCMP, and you surrendered the cards to law enforcement when they came to pick them up, which is nice. They came to pick them up. You didn't have to, incur the expense of shipping them as well, which minor, of course. I'm half kidding, but kudos to you guys for doing that. And, you said even at a card shows, you don't have your paperwork. I feel like moving forward, we vendors are going to have paperwork with us at card shows. We are going to have some sort of form, just run off, a couple dozen copies, take them with you, have them, templates, just write in the real personal details that you need, and have that in your back pocket moving forward. Because the other thing that will come in handy with is evidence of costs when you go to sell them and you're filing your taxes. There are other reasons to do this as a business person in the hobby, and you might not consider yourself a business person in the hobby, but if you are buying and selling cards at a card show, that's in fact what you are. And it's really then up to you to what extent you do or do not report to your taxation authority, whether it be the IRS or the CRA. But that's another topic. Speaking of which, I do have a U.S. tax expert coming on the show next month to talk about how to deal with gains on sports cards for Americans. This is a U.S. Tax. I think I'm not sure if he's a tax attorney or just a CPA, but this guy is in the hobby and knows all about it. So you'll pay attention to when I announce that episode. But Dallas, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, Matthew, is there anything that you'd like to say to Dallas before he goes on his way?
No, thank you very much, Dallas. Appreciate everything you did and all the insight you were able to give tonight.
Dallas,
no problem. I appreciate you having the conversation with us, and just taking the time out of your day to come and talk to everyone. And bring light to this situation. You know, a lot of people said it in the chat. We talk a lot about the bad, but I love to see that we're all doing our best to put a positive spin on this or bring light to this and make sure that we're helping others reduce or mitigate some of the potential in the future. So thank you for taking your time. And I don't know if you ever received the cards that we gave to the RCMP back yet or not. So if all you got them, I love to see. That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Seeing them actually with you it makes us happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the honorable numbers, by the way. I noticed the cup honorable numbers, Niedermeyer, number 27. I've owned that card before. Other copies, I'm sure, but I've owned that card before. Dallas, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. Say hello to the family, and we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good, Jeremy. Thank you for having us or having me, and have a good rest of the night, guys. I'll be watching from the phone.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thanks, Dallas, for joining the show. And Matthew, it's nice to be able to facilitate a hello between the two of you. All right. We're going to go to a few more comments, and then I'm going to get into sharing what I learned in talking to law enforcement. A couple of comments. Justin says, in response to having a cash heavy industry landscape that we're in, no receipts, it is going to be tough to track. No doubt about that, Justin. You are bang on that. Cast99 says it's good to see the community come together. Might be cool to see if people want to contribute to a charity that Matthew supports, perhaps PTSD addiction related, and really see some more positives arrive from it. Really nice idea there, Cast99. Lapper says, when I made a bigger deal at the expo, the buyer took my name, phone number, and ID to have on record. It's a pain, but should be standard practice. And I got to say kudos to you, Lapper, for giving that up. And I'm sure at first you were like, huh? But then maybe you realized, and I know I will never be offended if somebody asks me for that in the future. Maybe, it depends what ID you give them. Sometimes you may not want to give them something that has a home address on it. It really just depends, I guess. But you got to be prepared for that when dealers ask for your ID if you're trying to sell them something in the future. Hobby Champ says, I feel like the Canadian police were way more proactive than the ones in the States would be. Can't speak to that, but interesting. Ionis, there will be Pokemon cards at the Montreal Expo next weekend, I think for sure. Justin gives the Canadian police, good job, guys. Just don't come after me when I come up to Canada. Justin, you're too funny, bud. You are definitely too funny. Okay, some other comments here. I appreciate all of them, you guys. I'll try to read them. I just want to get to something else here in the meantime. So, all right, I'm going to switch up my notes here because I did, in talking to the constable at the RCMP, I did take notes, and because she did me a big solid. She said, let me get back to you by Saturday morning. I want to do research so you can give good information to your audience. So that's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. You don't have to, but she was willing to. I also just want to say hello to, we got about 40 people watching on X right now. So welcome you guys to the show. Instagram. If you are watching on Instagram and you're making comments, they don't show up. I can't really bring them onto the show. It's always better to jump over to YouTube and watch this on YouTube. But welcome to everybody watching on Instagram as well as LinkedIn and Facebook. All right. So Matthew, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things that I learned. So this is the part of the show, guys, where, this is kind of you've now heard the story. I think you've heard the story. I think you've heard it from different angles. And I think that you guys understand the situation. You know who is really out. Now, Cage had a comment earlier. Who reimburses the guy that reimbursed me? So let me get into, I'm going to tie that in right now, guys. And Cage, I'm going to tie that in right away here. And keep in mind, guys, that everyone that I have talked to, this is all Canada relevant. This is Canada specific. So I spoke to Canadian law enforcement. I've spoken to Canadian other experts, and I've spoken to Canadian legal counsel as well, informally, just to get some ideas to make sure that I wasn't going to say anything that just is completely wrong. I really don't want to do that. So first of all, purchasing stolen goods while knowing they were stolen, if you purchase stolen goods, knowing they were stolen, you can be charged for possession of stolen property. I think that's fair. On the other hand, purchasing stolen goods without knowing they are stolen, you cannot be charged with possession of stolen property in Canada. That's the first thing. Well, so my next question to the constable was, what happens if I am then made aware that I'm in possession of stolen property and I don't return them? Well, now you could be charged for possession of stolen property because it's like an intent thing. You know they're stolen and you are then legally required to return them. To who? Well, either to law enforcement or to the person who had them stolen, like in the first instance. These things, cards can get stolen from one person, then from that person too. You never know. But essentially, back to the original owner is what I understood, what I was told by the people that I consulted with. Also consider that the person you buy stolen property from may be a victim as well. That was the case here if they bought them from the actual thief or somebody else. So it comes down to who's left holding the bag and what will the person before you in the chain of custody do to make you whole. So I got lucky. The person before me in the chain of custody of Matthew's stolen property decided to make me whole because he felt it was the right thing to do. And I was obviously grateful for that. And I said to him, I said, well, what are you going to do? He goes, I'll figure it out, but I'm not going to sleep at night if I don't return you the money that you spent. How much did you give me again? And I told him, and he sent me. I could have told him a different number, but I didn't. I told him the right number. Chris, Bo_sports cards, same thing. He said, you know what? He said, I'm sending the cards back anyway. I'll eat the small loss. Very nice of him. But that money has been returned to Chris as well. So that's a good thing. But again, back to the legal side, as far as I understand, here in Canada at least, it really comes down to, do you know you're in possession of stolen property at the time you purchase it? If so, you're already breaking the law. If you then are advised that you have stolen property and it's official, like there is good evidence and all that, because even right now in this situation, I'm not required to send these cards back, receiving my money back or not, because there is the law enforcement can't make me do that right now. I'm going to do it anyway, but let's assume that they can because the evidence is there. And I think Matthew, even just today, has provided that now, or at least in speaking to the constable, Matthew, you and her have kind of met and agreed that, okay, so now you have my evidence. And I think that she's like, okay, we have it now. So I believe that to be the case. Is that correct?
Yeah, I gave the RCMP a USB stick with all the scans and the spreadsheet I had made up and kind of left it at that. And if there was anything more that I would have to provide, then hopefully they would contact me. But I also know, I think there's one card that I saw it go up on eBay, and I know I had seen it before. I was pretty sure I bought it before. It's part of the collection that was stolen, and I went in and somehow missed putting that one into my spreadsheet or it's scanning it. I think it was kind of when I was kind of at one of my lows, so I kind of like, all right, I'm gonna have to eat that one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. No, fair. Couple of quick comment. I see some comments here. I'm just going to jump into them. Canada Blue says, after all the people who pay good money for a booth at a card show, plus their expenses to do business, and then some guy comes in for $15 to sell or trade hot cards. Well, Canada Blue, couple things there. First of all, we're not talking 10 or $15. We're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars. Not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds and thousands of dollars. The other thing is, if I'm set up at a card show, I'm hoping there's people coming in with cards to sell me because I want to buy cards from people. So I'm well okay with. I don't agree with that position, Canada Blue, but maybe I don't understand it exactly. But I'm okay with people coming in to sell Well, I think you're saying hot cards. Yeah, I'm okay with people coming in to sell real cards. Daniel A, or Legit Cards. Daniel says, how about asking for a dealer's information when buying a card from them? Should go both ways. Well, maybe not, Daniel, because, and I don't know the legality of this. This is a great question. But when you walk into an organized professional card show, expo, event, conference, convention, whatever, I think it's fair for us as attendees to assume that the owner of the show has vetted their vendors and that the vendors are good and are not, and that there is, I believe there is part of a contract with the card show, at least a professional card show, that says you are not allowed to sell stolen property in here. I don't know what else they could do for that. So I don't think it should go both ways. I think no business. Listen, I think it should go both ways. You should be comfortable, but every time you buy a card from a vendor at a card show, you ask them to sign something. I think I probably wouldn't care too much because I got nothing to hide. But for some people who might just get their back up, I think you're gonna not be able to buy as many cards as you'd otherwise like to. But definitely something to consider as a part of this overall conversation. I just don't have the information for that. Canada Blue, I'm not a fan of people who come in to take advantage without setting up. Yeah, that makes sense for me as well. He also says, yes, Daniel, but our info is already with the owner who puts on the show. Exactly. I think that's a great point, and that's what I was trying to get at, but I think Canada Blue said it better than I did right there. Okay. Oh, $15 to enter the show. Oh, you're throwing in the G's. Hey, Canada Blue, you're going to throw in the G's even. All right, fair enough. Okay, so I asked the question to the law enforcement officer. I said, at what point are the cards considered stolen? And she said, once the victim files a police report and provides the evidence. So then these cards are considered stolen. And I think that's an interesting thing to note. But that was a question that I had asked. Also, and this is interesting. This ties into Cage's question from earlier. You know, who's going to reimburse the person who reimbursed me? Like, who's left holding the bag in all this? Especially if Matthew or the victim receives their stolen cards back from the honest person who bought them. That person can be left holding the bag. So here's what I learned. I'm just going to read it right from my notes. First of all, the amount that you paid does not matter. Whether you pay $10, $10,000, or $10 million, maybe $1 million, it matters. Does not matter. That is the gamble that you take buying cards from a stranger. You can, however, make a report at the police station, which will initiate an investigation, and then you can apply for restitution if you can identify the suspect being the person that you bought them from. So the guy that sold me the cards, he is now going to be motivated to help law enforcement identify the person that stole the cards from him, which raises the question to me, or which sold the cards to him, which raises the question to me, Matthew. You said you have an idea in mind. Are you doing anything with that information?
I did provide the name of that person to the RCMP when I spoke with them today. And yeah, they do have a record with the RCMP. I know they've been charged. I don't know if they've been gone to trial or found guilty yet. So I won't be releasing any names here for anyone who's listening, but yeah, I did give some information to the investigating officer today about who I suspected.
Okay, well, that's great, because if that story can be corroborated with the person I bought the cards from, or if even he bought them from that same person, that would be probably a good step towards finding some resolution to the investigation and the case itself. So that's good to hear. The officer went on to say, so it can become so again, I'll just back up. You can make if you're left holding the bag, you can make a report. You can file a report at the police station, which will initiate an investigation into who you bought the stolen property from. You can apply for restitution if you can identify the suspect, and then it becomes a civil matter, which might lead to nothing. Let's face it, right? It might lead, you can't get blood from a stone sort of thing. So that's why you, me, all of us, when we are buying cards from somebody that we don't know, and we might a stranger, you are taking a gamble. You are taking a gamble. And that's why it's important for me and for me moving forward as a vendor at a card show to get our ducks in order. So, here's what we've heard from Karn, we've heard from Leighton, we've heard from Dallas, and now I'll add in what because I asked the law, I said, what should I be doing to protect myself if I'm buying cards from a stranger, whether at a Tim Hortons or at a card show or on an online marketplace and anywhere. And they said, first of all, in person, ask for ID from the seller, like we've heard already. Ask for ID. Have a bill of sale. Write up a bill of sale. That's another thing, which ties into that legal contract or the contract that Leighton was mentioning, the paperwork that Dallas was mentioning. Have something on paper that you can refer to so that you can share it with law enforcement at the end of the day. And then the officer told me that like the whole claim is just more valid in their eyes if you come with this information. If you don't come with this information, you're probably not going to get your stuff back. You're probably not going to see any resolution from this, is just my takeaway. So the other thing that comes into play here is, we're talking about buying cards. We're really talking about buying cards in person from somebody, right? Stolen, that end up being stolen. But what if cards get stolen another way? Like through the shipping companies, we hear all the time about people saying, the U.S. Postal Service or FedEx or UPS or Canada Post, whoever it is, someone there is stealing these packages. Let's face it, we're sending cards to grading companies. We're sending cards to consignment sellers. We're sending cards through the mail to each other, to LC, wherever we're sending them. And those can be targets. So, what I was told by the law enforcement was, if you have cards that are stolen in shipment, file a police report. And then she also went on to say, there's no harm in you reaching out to all the companies involved, whether it's the Postal Service, the courier service, the grading company, whoever you're sending the cards to or from, reach out to them and see if they will cooperate. And that can be harder. It can be really hard if you're trying to get a hold of a huge company, but it's still worth the try, I think, even just to, when you're talking to law enforcement, say, well, yeah, I tried to call them. And the officer told me today, she even said, you might have trouble getting in touch with the right person at some of these organizations. She said, but we'll have an easier time. She kind of, like, with a little snicker in her voice, said, it's easier for us to get in touch with these bigger organizations, like an eBay, let's say, as an example. So file a complaint, make a claim with law enforcement, and reach out to these other organizations. So I think that's listen, it does seem obvious, I think, but maybe it isn't. And I didn't know what to do at first. I didn't know. I felt like I felt helpless in all this. I got to return his cards. That's the right thing to do. I'm going to be out my money, which it didn't end up that way, thankfully for me, but probably didn't work out as good for me as it did for some other people. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on all that? Did I get anything wrong in anything I just said as per your understanding?
No, that sounds all right. I know, yeah, when we even talked, I said, and you said you had called the RCMP detachment and you had been talking. I'm like, okay, well, let's wait until you hear back from the RCMP before we decide on doing anything. And it's just making sure that, those organizations are left in or brought into the loop to kind of cover all the bases and all the legalities. And because you never know what, even if I don't even know what's going on with the investigation, there might be something going on in the background that I don't know. And if we start doing something, and they're already kind of looking, I have family in police, so I know some of the stuff that they do. And with regards to like Facebook, they could have people kind of keeping an eye on things, and because they've heard tips from somewhere else. And so, if you get start poking your fingers somewhere, you could be in the middle of an investigation, kind of messing it up for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, it's we all have lives to live, and we've got families, or we've got jobs, and we've got whatever we do that keeps us busy. And these are kind of things that just take up time and take you away from things that are really productive in life. So the more we can do to mitigate this from happening again, I'm certain, now that I've experienced it myself firsthand. Like I could hear stories, but once it happens to you, like with like what happened with Dallas, what happened with Karn, these guys have taken precautions, put new policies in place, processes to accommodate these policies, and they're probably going to avoid issues like this in the future. And we talked earlier, someone brought up like insuring your cards. Yeah, take care of these things, guys. You know, your house could get broken into, like Matthews did. Take care of them. Even if you don't have a safe, if you don't use the safety deposit box, if you don't use a vault, hide them at least. Hide them from someone who might come into your house. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here, but do what you can to protect yourself from having them stolen. And as a buyer of cards, it's just so important now. I mean, I'm going to be scrutinizing everybody and just say, you know, I'm going to say, and I'm probably going to have a document now. It's going to say, you know, what's your name? And are you legally allowed to be selling these cards? Are they in your possession? Are they under your ownership? However I'll word, I'll look for a good template on that. Maybe get Cage to help me out, and we'll go from there. You know, we'll put one of these things together. And like Todd McDonald says right here, I can see now that more dealers will have cameras set up at their booth recording all the transactions. That's something else you can do. Get a picture of these guys. A guy on Instagram, jest.cards, he made a comment on my post. He said, ask sellers for their Instagram or other social media account names so you can shout them out. And if they don't want to be shouted out, maybe that's a red flag to you that there might be something fishy going on. That's something you can do as well. Take a picture with I've done that several times. Hey, let's get a picture of us in the deal. I'll hold up my new cards, you hold up your new cards, and we'll take a picture. You know, you can do that. That's something else that you can do too. A couple other suggestions that I saw. Greg Williamson on X suggested a database where the victim enters the card data and serial number, and then if the thief tries to sell them on eBay or hopefully anywhere else, an alert is sent when they create the listing. Now that sounds like a big technical project that would need a lot of moving parts to make that work, but something like that I think could be very helpful for sure. Those are a couple of comments that I did receive. Rage says here, regardless, this is a big lesson to everyone at these gentlemen's expense. So don't get me wrong, guys. I don't want to be, don't make me out to be, I'm not out a dime in this. I'm going to pay for the shipping to send the cards back to Matthew. Happily, I'm going to pay for that. But don't feel bad for me, guys. Matthew's the one who is the real victim in all this, in my opinion. And the guy that I bought the cards from, that guy's got a loss on his hands here as well, because he's now, my understanding is, reaching out to anyone he sold cards with and trying to make them whole. So this guy's really stepping up for sure. 90s Auctions says, are you a good faith owner of these cards? That is good legalese. And Josh behind this account is a lawyer in the United States. So I would take that as good advice right there. Josh, thank you for piping up with that. Andrew says, sounds way too stressful for me. Yeah, that's a thing. It's going to be stressful for people to deal with these things, even moving forward. So they may or may not want to have a form or sell to somebody who wants a form signed. And guys like me are going to have to decide if we want that deal or not. Bobby says, I don't agree with the shout out idea. Not everyone is comfortable putting themselves out there, and it doesn't mean they're up to anything. Very well said, Bobby. I thank you for mentioning that. And even when I made that comment, I said it might mean there's something fishy going on. A lot of people, Bobby's right, a lot of people don't want their face on social media. So that's fair too. In which case, you got to take another precaution and maybe see if they're willing to let you take a picture of their ID, which I'm sure a lot of people don't want to do, but they may not get to sell their cards if they're not willing to do that anymore as well. Mark says, with Todd's comment, you can't tell what cards are stolen at the show, only with certain numbers. It really depends on the cards too, right? Like serial numbered cards. Like Matt, your cards were, for the most part, serially numbered, so you were able to provide that. That's pretty good evidence, especially if you can produce your, an email receipt from eBay or PayPal or PWCC or wherever, right? I mean, that all goes a long way too. So Yankees fan says, thanks for sharing the story. Both of you. Thank you, Yankees fan, for being here. We appreciate that. for sure. Lennox Road says this is too much work for a couple $100. I don't even remember the serial numbers on all these serial number cards. Well, you're not expected to remember them, but I think having pictures of your cards is a good idea. And if it's too much work, yeah, and it is probably too much work for a couple $100. But if it's for, if you're at the card show and you're trying to spend $50,000 on cards for whatever reason to stock your shelves, it might be worth it for $50K or maybe $10K or $5K or $2K. Maybe not for $200. It really depends. That's going to be up to everybody there for sure. Lennox says it's cards, bro. That it's way too federal. These aren't $1 million cards. Not sure what you're saying, Lennox, but it sounds a little gibberishy to me. Mino Slick here says I submitted 25 cards to my LCS. 5 months later, a guy from the shop is in rehab, and my cards are popping up in Facebook sales. Yeah, Mino Slick. That's not a good situation. What we've learned, what I've shared earlier today, is file a police report. That's your first step. Go to your local dispatch department, walk in there, file a report, and bring as much evidence as you can that you own the cards. Pictures, spreadsheet with serial numbers, if you have it. Show them receipts from purchases you've made. Having some, I'd have to think too, Matthew, that having some references in place would be good too. If you frequent an LCS, let them know who that LCS is. Tell law enforcement, I bought a bunch of cards at my local card shop. And then that might provide a character reference for you so they know to take you seriously and not think this might be frivolous or a fraudulent claim. People can easily fraudulently claim stolen cards, easily. So that's something else right there, right? All right. I don't know that I really have anything more on this, Matthew, but I want to open it up to the chat here. Any more questions that we would be able to listen? I'm no lawyer. I'm not in law enforcement. We have some lawyers in the chat. We have Josh from 90s Auctions. We have Cage from the Hobby with Cage. I'm sure we have some others in the chat right now. So I'm not pretending to be a lawyer. I'm just reading the notes I have from my discussions with law enforcement and a really informal discussion I had with a lawyer who's just close to me in my life. So I do want to open it up to any questions or comments from everybody in the chat. We're an hour 45 in. Goes by super fast as always, Matthew. I'm glad you've been able to stick around throughout. We had the other guys come in and out, but it's nice to have you here, especially since these were your cards. And I'm glad to see all the support in the chat for you, not only for your stolen cards, but for charitable endeavor with whatever it is that you believe in and you want to see have some assistance out there. So that was really, wasn't that nice?
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice. Kieran says dishonest actors in the hobby ultimately increase overall costs, including administrative costs that will either be taken by dealer and or passed through to the buyer. 100% true. I mean, just look at, there's a few instances of that are really pervasive in across society. Look at what we have to do at airports now. Taking off your shoes at airports is because someone tried to, bring something on an airplane in their shoes at one time. 9/11 stuff, right? That all increases the whole cost for everybody to travel. You look at what happened with what were during the dot-com bubble. The name of the companies are just escaping, like WorldCom maybe or something like that. And Arthur Anderson was auditing the big energy company there, who I can't remember the name of them right now. But like all these things lead to other administrative requirements like the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. If you're not familiar with that, look that up. Like that's all because of corporate fraud. If people were honest, life would be a lot cheaper. That Enron, thank you, Jeff McMahon. I should know. Exactly. Look what Enron did to financial reporting, increased the cost of that for everybody, and that just increased prices across the board. It's pretty brutal. For the Game says insurance is great, but you have to have the documentation on purchases, pictures, and spreadsheets helped a bunch. Thank you for the Game for that additional advice to people. Todd McDonald says, Matthew, best wishes to you on your journey, and I'm sure your community appreciates your service. Yeah, well said. Well said. Very nice, Todd. Very nice, Todd.
Thank
Kieran,
you.
you prepared the chat just to right. All right. Thank you for being here for sure. Mino Slick says, I've got videos from breaks showing I won and the serial numbers. That's great. Have you made your police claim yet? Have you filed your report yet, Mino? Because if you haven't, I would say get on that. Everyone's telling me Enron. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Dave Moreau, my pal Dave, says, thank you. This is creating a greater awareness for common sense purchases versus doing the wrong thing. That's just like, listen, I mean, I was victim of this. Like, luckily for me, no cost. Shipping to my friend Matthew, which I'm happy to do. But no, I'm not a victim anymore in this. I've been made whole. I'm grateful for that for sure. But it's so easy. It's so easy. And here's the thing is that like 5 months earlier, I had even read about this, about a Niedermeyer collection. I totally forgot, Matt. Like I totally forgot. And I still bought the cards, but I just forgotten about it. Like it's so easy to get caught up in the moment and just you're buying cards, you're selling cards. It's like, all right, let's see these cards. Like I had no idea till I got the message from Josh Packham saying those might be those Niedermeyers. Like, looks like they are. What do you think, Matt? These are your cards? Yep, Jeremy, they're my cards. All right, man. Well, let's work on getting these back to you now. Like, it's just crazy, hey? Just crazy. Rage says, I document everything I can for business and what I plan to pass to my kids, regardless. Tomorrow is not promised. Yeah, documentation is key in this, guys. Keep good documents. Listen, if we were dealing in 25-cent and $2 cards, who cares? Someone breaks in, you lose $500 worth of cards. Probably not going to change your world. You're going to be upset. You're going to be disappointed because those were your cards. I don't care what they're worth. Your collection's your collection. You can have a $5 million collection. I feel as bad for that guy as I do as the guy who lost the $50 collection if they love them the same amount. I'm going to feel bad for both of you guys. Plus, the guy who lost the $5 million collection can afford $5 million in cards. The guy who has a $50 collection, that's the depth of the water that they're swimming in. So, again, my point being here that it doesn't really matter what you're losing. You're still losing your cards, and that just sucks for everybody. But document it if you care enough about it. Document what you have. Keep good records. Don't delete those emails you get from eBay confirming your purchase. Keep those emails. I've always kept them. I can go back to 1999 and still find every purchase I've made on eBay. Pretty cool. I mean, I think that's pretty good, especially when it comes to tax time and you need to verify your cost on things. Very helpful. I'm sure I won't say we've all gone through it because a lot of people don't report, but I think a lot of us have gone through that over the last couple of years. So Justin Bowe, girlfriend calls me and throws me off. Can be very distracting, Justin. Matt, anything else that you'd like? We can wrap up this show now pretty quick here. Anything you'd like to add, Matt, at all? And to the chat, please get your final comments in. We will go through them, and then we're going to wrap this up. But I want to give Matt a turn to say whatever's on his mind.
Not yet. Thank you to everyone out there from Hobby Insider and to Karn in Dallas. The support's been great. Definitely thought, if I couldn't get my cards back, at least try to, bring awareness, and just help other people who may find themselves in similar circumstances or best practices and what to do going forward. Yeah, you never know when something's going to happen. You have a theft or a fire or a flood, and just how to document your cards and how to keep track of, like your eBay receipts and stuff. I didn't do that. I took scans of just about all my cards, all my Niedermeyers, including the base where I had scanned, but other cards, it was just jerseys, autos. And I had spreadsheets for everything, but even that's not a guarantee sometimes. Sometimes they just want a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. And I don't know, one thing I learned coming out of treatment too was just to advocate for yourself. If you see cards that you've reported stolen, they're popping up on eBay or Facebook or other sites, just do what you can, contact the sellers and just see what you can do. Contact your investigating officer to say, hey, these cards are popping up over here. Because I know CNOs check out my cards. They don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from the police. eBay itself wants to hear from the police. Yeah, that's all they'll deal with. But
sorry, let me just jump in quick. So the key there, because I didn't know those two last things you said. You just said I'm guessing from your own experience that ComC and eBay, two big organizations, they want to hear from the police. And I don't blame them for that, because then they're going to get straight to the facts of the situation. There's going to be no really speculating, is this a real claim or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why so important. When you said advocate for yourself, start by filing that police report. That's the first thing that you should do when obvious. I think this is obvious. File that police report. First thing you should do. If not, number one, you didn't know to. Well, too bad for you, I guess, especially if that precludes you from being able to recover your stolen property. But at the end, it's just gonna be too bad for you if you don't. I think that's your number one tool. Please finish off what you were gonna say.
Yep, and I just wanted to say thanks for those who said that they would start a GoFundMe to get both you and I whole. I appreciate that, and I would feel weird, taking that money. But yeah, if you like, feel free to support Wounded Warriors Canada. They do a lot of work for first responders and military. Just injuries from coming back from war, but also with mental illness.
Very nice. Well, thanks for that, Matthew. I appreciate your kindness there. You're just a good guy right there. We got just a good guy over here, everybody. All right, let's go to some more some final comments that have rolled in. Mark Santucci says, "I'm glad you did buy them, Jeremy. If you hadn't and somebody else had bought them, Matthew wouldn't be getting them back because nobody would know him." I think, there's a chance that the other person that bought them might have got the word out, but I think there was some fortunate circumstances here that it was me that did it, and I just did a 90-second recording and put it out there to let you guys know that, hey, here's a topic I want to talk. This is my own firsthand experience. I want to share this with the community, with the Sports Cards Live audience. So thanks for recognizing that, Mark. He also gives us a 5 out of 5, and good luck to your team, Matt. Very nice, Mark. Yankees fan says, Matthew, love the ragdoll cat next to you. And Hobby Champ says, pets for the cat, please. Very nice, guys. And Justin Bode says, thanks for coming on, Matthew. Again, congratulations on sobriety. Much love and respect to you. Very nice. One day at a time, says Penguins Collector. Good advice right there. One day at a time, guys. That's the end of the comments. We're going to wrap this up, Matt. So I just want to say thank you again to Leighton, who came on, Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, for coming on earlier. I want to thank Karn for coming on from Slab Sharks. He was involved with this file. I guess you could call it a file. And I also want to thank Dallas Morrison from Morrison Trading Post and LCS just outside Calgary in Airdrie, Alberta. Wonderful family-run operation there, for coming on and also sharing his thoughts. Rage, we're going to end with Rage, says, trust me, these bag actors are going to do it to the wrong person one time, and it's destiny, but I'm getting too old to pull up the front doors when it does. Yeah, Rage, you just leave it to law enforcement. Probably the best course of action. Good night, Justin. Thanks for being here, buddy. Congrats. Thank you to everybody for joining tonight. Thank you for sharing the reel I put out there. Had a lot of reposts and that, so I'm grateful for that. We got the word out. We had a great audience tonight here on YouTube, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So thank you, everybody, for that. Matt?
Since it's a sports card show, we might as well show the cards I got back courtesy of Dallas. Here we go.
Scott Niedermeyer, honorable numbers. Beautiful. I love that. I love the Canadian jersey as well, the Olympic jersey. Such a great card.
And then, yes, the other one, this is the one I spent the most on getting.
That's a quad auto with Bobby Orr, Paul Coffey, Raymond Bourque, Nicholas Lidstrom. And on the back, we've got Denny Potvin, Scott Niedermeyer, second from the top. That's the reason he owns this card. We've got Brian Leach on the bottom and Larry Robinson second from the bottom.
Yeah,
Man,
and it's numbered 4 out of 5.
Bobby Orr's jersey number. That's a nice. Those are 8 Hall of Fame, the best Hall of Fame, 8 Hall of Fame defensemen among the best ever. Very nice. Hey, well, do you want me to show some of the cards that you'll be getting back from me?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here, I'll just show. So probably the best one maybe is this 1-of-1 from Artifacts, a triple tag with Scott Niedermayer, Brendan Shanahan, and Martin Brodeur. That's a good card. I was happy about having this card, Matthew. I'm sad to see it go, but I'm glad it's going back to where it deserves to go. I'm not sad to see it go. I'm glad to see it go back to you, buddy. I really am. 0506 the Cup, scripted swatches, Scott Niedermayer. We've got from the Cup 2 notable nameplates. 1-of-1, basically. 1-of-1s. And then from SP Game News, we've got a by the letter Scott Niedermayer A. We got that. A 1-of-1 auto from Black Diamond, the Sapphire. This is actually from, you can see the 1-of-1 right there. The 1-of-1 right there. I won't show all of them. Some of them aren't as exciting. No offense to your cards, of course. A nice Niedermayer Artifacts dual patch out of 9. I love these Upper Deck game jerseys, the game used patches, I should say. These are out of 15. You had 2 of these. And the 0506 year is kind of a good one. It's just I just love that design. So 2 of those. These are out of 15. Those are really cool cards. You're going to get them back now. Famous Fight Straps times 2 different years. This was the first year they did them, I believe. This one is from 2009-10, and this is 10-11, I believe. So 2 Famous Fight Straps. These are numbered out of 10. Cool cards. Hockey jerseys have fight straps in them to keep the jersey on the player, so they can't be pulled over the guy's head. Those are from the fight straps. Really cool cards. You have the Captain C. Scott Niedermayer was the captain of the Anaheim Ducks for a period. This is the C, the Captain C, right off the chest of the jersey. Really cool. And the last one I'll show is this Emblems of Endorsement from 0506, the Cup, dual patch auto out of 15. So those and a few more. I think I've got 16 or 17 cards here altogether, Matt, that are going to make their way back to you. Matt, there's one card. The whole reason this happened, everybody, the whole reason this happened is because Chris, who I've mentioned, saw these cards before I did and said, hey, Jeremy over there likes this particular card. And he said, so the guy made his way over to me, and I bought that card and all these other ones too. And that's a card that, Matthew, I do wish to retain. So I would like to, what I want to do is I'm just going to send you money. I'm going to send you your cards back, of course, but then it's up to you. I'm happy to return that card to you. It's totally your call. Or if you don't love it and it's not an extremely valuable card, it's nothing like any of these, I'll just buy it from you. So really up to you what you want to do. If you want to sell it to me, I will not accept it for free. I will not take the card for free. I will only pay for it. So we can come up with an amount that is fair, and I will send you the money for that card as well, because I can't. And I'm sure you want to say just keep it. You've already told me that already, so I'm not no secrets there. But I'm not going to accept that. I will send you money for it and pay you fair and square, and send you, unless you want it back. You can have it back too. I will find another one. I don't need it that bad. Totally up to you. So
no, that's fine. Yeah, we can come up with something there.
You'll sell me the card? Okay. As long as you didn't love it. If you loved it and you want it back, man, honestly, I don't care that much.
Yeah, I think what I remember, it was something. I think there's quite a few more out I could find if I really want to get it.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it, but I appreciate your generosity with your time. I appreciate you coming on and sharing the story with myself and everybody else. I appreciate if you sell me that card. I'd love to own it. It'll go great in my collection. And thanks to all the other guys that came. Thank you to the chat for being here, your comments, your questions. Really appreciate that. All right, man. I think we're going to wrap it up. Matt, say goodbye to everybody.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. Again, enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. I will be back tomorrow for the PWCC hockey weekly auction ending watch coverage. And again, Monday for the MC Sports Cards, MC Mondays showcase auction. Amazing high-end cards going off Monday night on their eBay account. I will be covering those with Michael Hathaway, the Crystal Ball, everybody. And please remember, this show is also available on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Please follow and subscribe for free. and leave a rating or review if you wouldn't mind as well. And with that, everybody, this episode of Sports Cards Live for May the 18th, 2024 is now over.